Kettleman's Bagels is proud to support Grill This, Smoke That. Kettleman's, makers of wood-fired Montreal-style bagels using only premium ingredients. With 3 Ottawa locations, Kettleman's menu is available 24/7, 365 days a year. Grill This, Smoke That is generously supported by Oven Brothers, makers of handcrafted Canadian-made wood-burning outdoor ovens for inspired chefs. Visit us at ovenbrothers.ca. Oven Brothers, from our family's backyard to yours.
Grill This, Smoke That is brought to you by Furtado Farms. For all your outdoor cooking needs, they're your premium source for cookwood. Whether it's pellets, chips, chunks, or logs, they've got you covered. Visit furtadofarms.ca for more info.
Hi, I'm Steph Legari, also known as Steph the Grilling Gourmet. On this episode of Grill This, Smoke That, we're going to be featuring the foods of Newfoundland with my very good friend, chef and author, Ted Reeder. So according to the former license plate, today it's a world of difference on Grill This, Smoke That. Today on Grill This, Smoke That, I'd like to welcome my really good friend Ted Reeder. Ted, I don't know what you did. Did you bring the rain with you from Toronto?
Oh, I brought the rain. There's a lot of rain today, but you know, so we're indoors doing the prep.
Yeah.
And then it'll be outside for quick and easy, but sometimes you got to take it indoors.
I've known Ted a long time. He was one of my mentors when I started this game of barbecue. And Ted is originally from Newfoundland, so I thought, what a great guest to profile dishes from Newfoundland and tell us a few stories.
Well, I'm not from Newfoundland. I'm in Ontario.
I know,
my dad was from the
lineage,
Rock. Lineage, right? So
there.
I'm like a first-generation Canadian because my
Absolutely.
dad was born before Confederation. He was born in Bonavista, and my mom and her parents were the first Latvians to immigrate to Newfoundland after World War II.
Wow.
And so my dad was walking down the street. It was a rainy day, just like today.
Yeah.
And he saw this beautiful woman in a yellow raincoat. And he said to his friend Black, he said, "See that girl?
Right.
I'm going to marry that girl." And he did. And 3 kids later, they got me. Yay! And so it was growing up in a Newfoundland and Eastern European Latvian home.
Right.
There was a blend of different types of foods. And for my dad, codfish was a big thing. And we're not doing codfish.
No, we're not
because
doing
I
codfish.
grew up eating that like every week and cod liver oil and taking these things. And I'm sorry, it's an awesome fish, but I'm done.
We're not doing
I'm done.
cod
You know,
anymore.
I like the cheeks, I like the tongue, and I enjoy it when it's nice, but it's just not my thing. I prefer screech. And
Yes.
but I'm a beef guy.
Me too.
And my dad was always would do like turkey, and wanted his salt beef with it, and he would cook his corned beef and cabbage together. And so this is sort of taking some of the things that I grew up with and doing it into my version of how I saw my dad
Right.
and the food that he created around my house. And it was very important around growing up. So
Beef shank.
beef shank.
Big, beautiful beef shank.
Beef shank. And it's bone in the center. A big, big bone full of marrow
Right.
and deliciousness. And when you go to your butcher, you say, "I want a whole beef shank," they're like, "Well, I got to order it." Because
Right.
it is a special order.
Correct.
Because normally they just cut it across. They use it for soups. They make an also buccal out of it.
Right.
And so this is out of beef. But this, when it is smoked low and slow for a long period of time, and the meat just falls off that bone, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So when you get it like this, you got to do a bit of trimming
Okay.
because there's excess fat, and then you've got some sinew, right? So I'm just using a
And you really don't want that in your mouth because there's nothing pleasant about
there's
it.
nothing. And so you want to keep some of the fat because the fat is going to be flavor
Right.
that you want, which will give it a little bit of self-basting. But the bottom line is you want to get down to this, all this silvery skin, and you need to remove that.
Right.
Right? You got to take it across and then
A lot like the membrane on the back of a rib.
yeah, or on a
You just don't want that because it's going to actually do 2 things. It's going to have a bad mouthfeel, and also it'll interfere with your flavorings that are actually supposed to flavor your meat.
That's it.
Right.
And you want to get it right down because this just it's all about the texture.
Right.
And so on a beef tenderloin, you have this silver skin as well.
Right.
And it's the same thing. You want to remove that all the way down and get to it. And like we said before, your butcher can do this for you.
Right. Don't expect to do this yourself. If you want to try, we encourage it, because there's nothing better than getting your hands on a big piece of meat and trimming it up and making it yours. But your butcher can definitely do this for you. And when you're ordering your beef shank, just say you'd like it trimmed.
Yeah.
That's all.
Trimmed and tied.
Trimmed and
is
tied.
what you want. And then come around, right? And
Awesome.
you just take it all the way down, like this side. I'm going to take up my little bigger knife here, right? I'm going to get underneath that. See how it's tough, right? You need to, if you leave this on, you'll spend days trying to chew this, because it's going to shrink and get tighter and tighter and tighter.
Right.
And then it shrinks down on the meat, and it makes the meat tougher.
Right.
So you want to remove this. Because look, that's just, you can't break it down. You can't even tear it apart. And so nothing you do in cooking will ever make that tender. So you've got to remove it. You got to get underneath.
Yeah, no amount of braising or slow cooking, or I know this is going to be going into the smoke. We're going to be using a mixture of hickory and applewood for it. And it's going to be going on there for, 8 to 12 hours. It's going to be cooking at a very low temperature, 220 degrees over charcoal and wood. So you don't want to rush this thing. It's not like having a T-bone steak or a rib steak where it's hot and fast and it's juicy and delicious. This will just go incredibly tough, and it will not be edible. Most of the times these are braised in liquid, where the liquid actually breaks down the muscle tissue. But because we're barbecue guys, we're going to do it low and slow over charcoal and wood.
Yeah. And it's like 8 to 12 hours.
Right.
It's about patience.
Yeah.
And you can put it into beer and say to yourself, okay, it's going to be 8 to 12 hours, and I'm going to get 4 beer.
Absolutely.
Or 6 beer.
Yeah.
And you have some fun with it.
Right.
But you've got to get these and break it down. And it takes time.
Absolutely.
It takes a good little bit to maneuver all the way through all of this.
Right.
And break it down.
But the end process is so worth it.
It is so worth it.
Absolutely.
Right?
So seasonings.
I am a simplistic kind of guy.
Yep.
And there are 3 things that's going to go involved, or 4 things to seasoning this. Salt, and we're using a coarse flake sea salt.
Right.
Coarse brown black pepper.
Rice.
And then we've got in this jar Newfoundland savory. And so growing up, Newfoundland savory was a staple in my dad's kitchen.
Right.
And you couldn't have a turkey or turkey stuffing made without Newfoundland savory. It was part of it. And there's just something about Newfoundland savory that is different than all other savories from around the world. And you get it at the Newfoundland shop. And that's where I get it. My mom will occasionally, she'll come.
It's mild.
It's mild, but when it cooks,
It
it
blossoms.
opens up and it blossoms. And so we're just literally going to rub this down with salt and pepper.
Awesome.
And a little bit of savory. And then we're going to add in a touch of screech on
So
the outside.
it does take a fair amount of work to break one of these down and
yeah.
actually clean it all up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot, you'll pay more for it
Right.
when you ask your butcher to do all this, right, than yourself. And probably $2 to $3 to $4 a pound more
Of course.
for them to do the work, because it takes time.
Of course.
Right, everyone takes a little bit of extra work.
But after watching this show, everybody at home will know how to do this. So you can save yourself some money.
You save some money.
Absolutely.
And it's fun, right? You enjoy, it becomes, barbecue is so primal. And so when you're working with something like this, and it's respectful to find really great animals and know where it comes from, and is it sustainable, and how is it treated?
Right.
You want that. And it's great. We live in a great country where we have great flavors and great everything. See this thing in here? This is the tendon.
Big old tendon.
That tendon, I love tendon, but it takes hours and hours and hours and hours of cooking it down. So you want to get that tendon
Just chop it
out
off.
of there. Yeah.
Now, in Newfoundland, there's a lot of moose.
Tons.
So we could actually use moose shank as well. Yes,
Yeah,
no?
if you could get a moose.
So what's the process? Would it be a longer process for cooking, or?
It's going to be a very tough
Right.
piece of meat. And so you want to, first is I would hang it and get some age on that so that it rots a little bit, so
Right.
that you're going to get that tenderness, the natural tenderness. And you'd want to put 2 to 3 weeks of age on it in a controlled environment.
Right.
And then it would be, with moose, because it's also very lean,
Mm-hmm.
is that I would do a light smoke in the smoker,
Yep.
and then I'd actually braise it. I'd bring it in the house, and I'd
Throw
pop
some liquid on it, some root
in the
vegetables,
oven.
and away you go.
That's it. And let it go, and then you'll get that natural smoke coming from it.
Right.
And you go from there.
Awesome. Well, that looks pretty good.
All right, we're almost right down there. So we can go trim it all the way down
Yep.
everywhere, okay? But you want here. Some of them will cut around here,
Right.
so that you break through any of the tendons or the muscles, so that when this cooks, it kind of
just
shrinks
slides down.
down, right? It slides down off the bone all the way across. And then if you want, you can tie it. Right, so you need a little bit of, right, you can come around. Right, put your finger there. There you go. Okay. Need a bondage a little bit?
Not at all.
There you go.
Ow, you pinched me.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Beautiful.
And so tie it all the way up. And then you can take a little bit, what I like to do is you put a little bit of thyme around it and other herbs.
Right.
But then it just, when you're rubbing it, start off with the salt.
Be liberal with it.
Be liberal.
It's a big piece of meat. It needs a lot of seasoning to get in there.
Get
it
in.
really needs an aggressive amount of flavor.
Rubbing it, yeah.
Right.
And then a little bit of the savory, right?
Right.
And the same with the black pepper. So you rub this all in and get it. It's so much fun is when you can rub the meat, right? And you feel it, and you know, because then your passion for the food comes out. And when it's cooking, you're going, okay, like when this is all said and done, I'm going to have a good time.
Love watching you work, man.
Thanks,
I love
man.
watching you work. You get so into it. People say, you know, why do you talk so passionately about food? This is why I talk passionately about food. It's all experiences, you know?
It is, and I've been fortunate through my entire career that everything revolves around
Absolutely.
food, and I love it. And then you need just a little bit of this. You need a little bit of Newfoundland screech. Some for you,
Yes.
some for me, and then you got to, oh, don't forget, a little bit
On the
on the meat, right? And just a little bit of that sweet, dark rum, and then it's going to go on the platter. Take it out to the smoker, 220 degrees, low and slow. And it's not, you know, people will say, how long does it take? It takes as long as it takes to get to the internal temperature. And what you want from an internal temperature is approximately 200 to 203 degrees.
Right.
So that meat is moist and tender and falls right off the bone.
Well, before I go to the grill, Teddy, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Let's go to the grill.
It'd be tasty, man.
This beef shank looks amazing. So we're going to transfer it into a baking pan, and it's going to go right into our Oven Brothers oven, which is set at about 220 degrees, very low. Going to check my fire. 1 stick is all I'm going to need. See you in many, many hours.